I'm Jim Benson, and I'm announcing the launch of The Collaboration Equation, a book that took about 6 years from initially putting the first words on paper to finally getting it out. And there's a lot of reasons why it took that long. We won't talk about them right now, maybe, but it's really good to have the book out, and it represents, I don't know, everything that I feel and think about helping people and teams achieve. And so the collaboration equation itself, what is it? Individuals in teams create value. It sounds simple, but no one takes it to heart. So we have a lot of different processes and process families out there, and some of them focus on the teams, some of them focus on the value. Almost none of them focus on the people, and if they do, they focus on them so individually that they're completely removed from the fact that those people are parts of teams. So we're looking at the system here, the whole system of work, which says we don't do any work alone. We've got to get work done, and that work has to be good. It has to leave us feeling professionally satisfied. I wrote this book because we forget that people do their best work when they work together. That collaboration is success. Every successful group, every successful team I've ever worked on has worked as part of a collaboration, right? They've come together. They understand why they're working together, how they're successful. If you ask anybody, what's your favorite experience working? They're not going to say, oh, I did this thing completely by myself. They're going to say, I worked with these people and we did this cool thing and we had this challenge and we solved it. So when we build a right environment, the people, the professionals that are in that right environment understand what they need to do in order to be successful and why, right? They have gotten together as a group and they figured out, here's what we do. There's clarity in action that makes things calmer, even in the face of adversity. And then they can become responsible professionals, right? No longer worried about accountability, which is what you're given when you're given like a task and then you have to finish it. And if you're not, you're held accountable. But the system actually allows people to behave responsibly, to exhibit leadership and psychological safety and agency and all those good things that we always talk about. But we always say, you need more agency. I've given you agency, but no one has built a system to do that. So this book is specifically written to create systems of right environments and responsibility so that professionals know when and how to act professionally. We hold ourselves back every day by having anti-collaborative structures in our management. Rigid reporting structures, strong teams, strong silos, lots of dependencies, poor management, planning that's done in this silo and then given to that silo. Millions of ways that our best practices of working every day stop us from having that agency and that psychological safety. And when we do that, we in turn ourselves hold other people back and we don't even realize it. We don't give them the information they need when they need it. We don't tell them when we learned something, all of those good things. So this book is written because it doesn't have to be that way. We can actually plan a right environment. We can actually have teams and companies that are made up of informed, responsible, growing professionals who are looking out for each other. So what's in this book? What happens when you turn the pages? So in the preface, I'm just going to go through chapter by chapter, but in the preface, it's kind of like my own personal journey from crazy punk rocker in the middle of Nebraska through to building light rail systems and subways, software, and then, writing books and thinking a lot about how people actually work. So that's a little bit about me. Then the first chapter starts off at the beginning of the equation. Individuals. let's acknowledge that they exist. Let's take them into account and say, all right, individuals actually exist. So how do we get those individuals to act with confidence? So I tell some stories in there about the construction industry and some stories in there about software. But what does it look like when individuals have the information that they need to act with confidence? How is that information shared? How is it visualized? What is their reaction to it? How easy is it for them to onboard other individuals into their project when those things happen? So visual management is obviously a very large part of this, but the bigger part here is just respect for people. And actually not just talking about it, like, wouldn't it be great if we had respect for people, but how do we do it? How do we actually demonstrate respect for the people who are actually doing the work and their ability to make that work better, to continuously improve? Then from there in chapter 2, we move into the middle of the equation, teams. Okay, so you've got a bunch of individuals now, and they're able to communicate and talk together and get work done. Well, strangely, they become a team. And they don't become a team because they're assigned to work together. They become a team because they actually understand what the hell they're supposed to be doing, which is an exciting thing to watch. It's like really exciting to watch that. So chapter 2 tells a few stories as well from teams around the world, most notably in this one at the World Bank. But what happens when you build a structure so that these individual professionals can come in and solve problems and get their work done? Okay. Chapter 3, not surprisingly, is the end, or the whole sentence. Individuals in teams create value. So now we've got a bunch of professionals. They need to build the system that they use to work. They can't get it from a book. Not even this one, but you have to build it. It has to be built to suit. You have an individual team working in a unique company, building something different, running into unique challenges. Even if this has been done hundreds of times before, or thousands or millions, like in the construction industry, you still run into problems, and you still have unique individuals working on your teams with unique perspectives. So chapter 3 goes into kind of the agency, information flow, how we tend to abuse each other on a regular basis by doing anti-collaborative things, and then how we can transcend or remove ourselves from that abuse by actually building systems that allow us to collaborate. So, chapter 4 is creating the value, like going deep into creating the value. So real-time collaboration, what does that look like? And this chapter takes kind of a different angle at this. So it tells the story of a company that their planning was so poor and their communication was so poor that they built this massive bottleneck around one group in the company. And almost every team in the company relied on that group to get their work done, but the group was totally overloaded and they were a cost center. I hate the term cost center. They were human beings providing a valuable service to the company that just was undervalued. So anytime someone tells you cost center, it's like a mini rant for the intro to the book. If anybody ever says cost center to you, just replace it with the words undervalued. So these people obviously were on the critical path for work getting done, but they weren't given the resources they needed, and everybody blamed them for not getting their work done until that bottleneck almost took the whole company down. So this chapter, the story in this chapter is so powerful because the whole company had to come together and work for that team. They had to stop what they were doing, building all the new stuff, and they had to come and work for that team, not because the team screwed up, but because that team's value to the company was not fully realized. The system, therefore, broke down. Sorry, I love that chapter. Okay, so chapter 5. This is where the rubber meets the road. Okay, that's why the tickets just changed color. See that? Visual control in action. So Right environment. So at Turner Construction, they have a concept known as a right environment. When I worked at David Evans and Associates, we used to say that they hired outstanding professionals and gave them the tools they needed to do an outstanding job. When you're building a team or when you're launching a project, the first goal isn't to figure out what the timeline and the milestones are. It's to figure out what the professionals need in order to do a professional job. So this chapter provides a 1-week event where a team gets together and figures out what its right environment is and what their responsibilities are to maintain that. So they're defining their culture, they're making it something that they can operationalize or act on. So we believe in informing each other of things, we believe in learning. Well, then you better include that in your weekly planning. You better include your visualizations to show those things, to make sure that they're living up to the things that they say that they all need and want to give each other. And weirdly enough, almost every team we've worked with has done it. Often they're like, well, of course we'll do that. It's like, well, you never did it before. So anyway, that involves our right environment exercise, which is a very practical 5-day event. Okay. 6, none of this stuff works, and people who know about our book, Personal Kanban, aren't going to be surprised to hear this. None of this stuff works if you don't visualize your work. So from the very beginning, in chapter 1, we're talking about how groups of people, when they collaborate and they need to know things, they make those things visible and constantly available. That is done in something that's called an obeya. An obeya is a virtual or real room where everything a team needs to know is located. It's that simple. So you don't have to go digging around for information or wait for status meetings or things like that. You can actually go in and actively see how things are unfolding. So this chapter 6 talks about how to build that obeya and a lot of the different kinds of boards that are up there. So there's like owned commitment boards and shared commitment boards, time-sensitive boards, availability boards, action boards, pull planning boards, decision-making boards, prioritization boards. Whatever it is that you need goes up there. So there's not just one visualization. There isn't just one program that holds all of our information about planning and what we're doing. We actually build something to do that. Highly practical, highly obtainable, and just a joy to watch when it happens. Okay, it's chapter 7, finding your way. There's the Toyota way, there's the Nordstrom way, there's the McKinsey way, all these ways, the Spotify way. Everybody goes off and tries to do someone else's way. Well, you can't because it's not you. So this chapter talks about how you find your own way. It seems incredible to me that we would need to say that, but everyone is so hell-bent on copying other people because they don't want to do the work. Well, if you care about your work and you care about other people and you care about your customers and you don't want work to be a slog or suck, frankly, you got to know what you're doing. So in chapter 7, we talk about meetings, like how you set them up, how you build working sessions instead of just informing people of stuff, how your processes and tools provide a foundation for healthy individuals and interactions. It's that simple. This chapter alone is what Agile is, right? So if you're an Agile person, that's your Agile chapter. Okay. Chapter 8, also a green chapter. Leadership is an action. We treat leadership like it's a role, and like when people get there, they magically know what to do. Well, almost all leaders are completely clueless, overloaded, and generally bombarded with meaningless KPIs and things that they have to do because they also have leaders. Leaders can be anyone. So in this chapter, I talk about at Turner a very, very, very high-ranking person working with a very, very, very low-ranking person and giving that person guidance on how to lead. Okay. There's another very, very low ranking couple of people in this chapter that launch their own visualizations in their team because they're leaders, even if they're not high ranking. So leadership is when someone actually acts in the best interests of the group. They don't have to ask permission. They don't have to go beg. They don't have to ask someone else to do it for them. Please stop hurting us. But they actually have the agency and the psychological safety to do that. And you can't do that if you haven't done these things before, which is building a system that allows you to have that psychological safety. That's simple. This is, sorry, very proud of that chapter. So in the end, I wrap this up really quickly with kind of the bookend for the punk to passenger miles part there, which is called the enduring collaboration. And it talks about how hard this is and how most of the people who read this book, whether they want to or not, are going to become change agents. And it addresses, or at least confronts, that being a change agent, like asking someone else to change, is not just difficult, it's sometimes dangerous. And we need to own that. Whether we get our whole group together and we decide we're going to change, that's great, we go change, and then we're going to have other groups pushing back. Status quo bias is real. And it has a strong impact on the change we're actually able to do. And what frequently happens is someone reads a book like this, and then they think, this thing is so awesome. I've got to go do this to people right now. And one of the things that I'm trying to do in chapter 9 is pull people back from that and say, wait, don't run in like a new convert, because the stuff's really cool and it will work. But it needs to be introduced in a way that the individuals on the team can digest. That you are trying to create value, and if you go in and do it as an individual without the team, you won't be able to create that value. The reason that I introduced this book like this is because each one of these chapters, it could be its own book. There's a lot in here. And I released this book on my 57th birthday. I have spent almost all of those 57 years working in various teams, artistic, creative, business, what have you. And this is a distillation of almost all of that. I look forward to seeing, who buys the book and the impact that it has. This has been a joy. Thank you.